Hello and welcome to the 5th video in the Unity Basics series where we learn all about prefabs. Prefabs are game objects that are used in all different scenes, but you can have them inside of your assets folder. For example, inside of this scene, I know this is the scene because its name is scene. You have a scenes folder inside of your assets folder with all of the scenes in it. I have two scenes, a sample scene and a scene. This is the scene I am in right now. But a prefab is a game object that can be switched from scene to scene. So in order to create a prefab, we're first going to create a game object. So we can right click in the hierarchy, create a 2D, a sprite, and then a square. We can just name this square prefab. And then right now, it's just a regular square. We can move it around the screen, and that's all it is. We can go to the game view, and we can see it's right there. But let's make this just a little bit more specific to this prefab. So I'm going to click R, and I'm going to scale it up just a little bit, and then I'm going to change the color to something like this pink. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this prefab and drag it down here inside of my assets folder. And you can see here that there's this bluish square, and then it says prefab because we have our game object named prefab. And we have this blue square right here, and we have this little arrow. Prefabs are nice because you can change one of them or you can change all of them at the same time. So if I can have more than one prefab in the scene, so I'm just going to duplicate this. So now I have 3 prefabs. They're all the same because they're the same exact prefab. But if I go to this one in the assets folder, so if I'm going down here inside my projects and I'm in here in the assets folder and I change the color to black, then updates, all of them will turn black because I changed the whole prefab. All of these prefabs are deriving from this whole prefab. So if this one is white, then all of them will change to white. So if this one is pink, all of them will change to pink. But if you go into your hierarchy and click a specific prefab and change that prefab's color, so you see I'm in the first prefab, only this one changes to black, or only this one changes to white. But what I can do is if I change this to black, you see there's a few more things up here. It says a prefab, and it's going to look for this prefab, and this is the prefab that it's deriving from. And then overrides, this is just the things that you changed to just this prefab. If you've changed something to just this prefab, you will get a little line right here so you know that this prefab is not the same as the other ones. You'll get a little line where you changed it, so you see that I have to change the color to black and the other ones are pink. And then if I go to overrides and click apply all, then all of them will change to black. Because if I want to change just one of them and realize, hey, I like that, then I can change all of my prefabs to something like this. An example of this would be if you are in a 2D platforming game and you have little collectibles like coins. You can make the coins prefabs and you can just dab them all around the map. And then let's say you want to change the color to like a yellow but a darker yellow. And you say, oh, I like that. So you can go to your overrides and click apply all, and then all of them will become that same color. Prefabs are really nice because, as I said, you are able to have them in different scenes. So in this scene right here, let's just put this prefab, and then we'll just create another 2D object, a sprite, and then a square. We can just create another square, keep it named square, and put it over there. I'm going to go to my other sample scene. First, I'm going to save up this scene, and inside of this scene has nothing in it, but if I go to my assets, I can drag in this prefab, and then you can see my prefab's all the way over there, so I'm just going to drag it right to there. But this prefab is the same as the other prefab. Just looks a bit different because this camera is just a bit smaller. So you can change this prefab, but if I save this and go back to my other scene, I'm not able to move this square from scene to scene, but I'm able to move my prefab from scene to scene. So that's what you can do with prefabs inside of the hierarchy, but you can do things with them inside of code too. So you see here that I have this little sample script set up right here. I'm going to open that up, and then you can meet me back when you have your sample script open up too. in here, it's just a sample script, so it has nothing in it except for just the start and update methods. Up at the top, we're going to create a method or a variable. This one is going to be a serialized field. So if you remember that a serialized field, it allows you to edit it inside of the inspector. It's going to be a serialized field, a private game object. And since the prefab is a game object, it's just going to be a game object, and we can name it prefab. And what you can do with prefabs inside of code is make them appear. Prefabs are nice because you can't really make game objects appear and disappear on the screen without just turning them on and off and always having them inside of your hierarchy. But prefabs, you can just instantiate them inside of your screen, inside of your game. That's what it is. So inside of update, I'm just going to create an if statement to just instantiate a prefab. So if input.get key down, and it's just going to look for a key, so I'm going to write keycode.f, let's just say. So it's going to, when this key is pressed, if you remember if statements do things like that, if the key F is pressed, we're going to do something. So we can just create a prefab. So what we'll do is I'll type instantiate, and then it's going to look for a few parameters. It's going to look for the prefab itself. It's going to look for a place to instantiate it. So we can just write game object dot transform dot position, and then that just means it's going to make this prefab wherever this game object is. So it's just taking the transform dot position of this game object and putting the prefab on top of it, and then it's going to look for a quaternion or a rotation, and then we can just do quaternion dot identity, and that just means it will rotate on how the scene is rotated or how our player is rotated. If you would like to learn more about that, I would recommend looking in the Unity documentation for what quaternions are and how to use them more efficiently. So if we go back inside of our Unity editor, we can see here that we just have our little thing, and inside of my square right here, I'm going to add my sample script to it, just so that we can have something to add this script to. We can just drag our prefab in from our assets. Remember to drag it in from your assets and not from your game, because your game prefab might not stay there the whole entire time. I'm going to delete my game prefab inside of our hierarchy, and then we can just go back to our square, check that the prefab is this prefab, and then I'm going to click this play button up here to see if our update method is working. Once we're in our play mode, we can see that nothing is happening because we have it set that when we push a key, our prefab will be instantiated. So if I click the key F, my prefab should be instantiated, and it is. It is instantiated right on top of the square, which is what we did because we put the prefab to instantiate right on top. And since we did that, we're not going to be able to see if I click it again, but inside of my scene, you can see that there's just more and more prefabs being instantiated the more times I click the key. And then that is exactly what we wanted, because we said that when we click the key F, then we should instantiate our prefab. Now, this is the end of this Unity Basics tutorial. I hope you all learned something from this tutorial. If you like this tutorial, please give our channel a like and a subscribe, and share it with anybody who you think would like it. Thank you.